Hey guys, hi, welcome to today's live. I'm Nina Hart. I'm the president of the NNBA, and today I'm talking about how to create a service that people actually want to pay for. So, we've been talking about service based businesses for nurses. We've talked about all the opportunities out there and how you can leverage those. We've talked about how to position your business to get clients. And now we want to talk about your services, how to create a service in your service based business that people want to pay for. I think with nurses, we tend to be a little too logical. So we want to say, I offer XYZ, and we say the actual service that we do. And that's really not how we want to market our business to explain what the outcome is. So I'm going to go deeper into that concept today. So a lot of nurses, I'm finding, know they have the experience they need to have their own business, which is amazing. I think just in the last couple years, we're really seeing nurses like embrace this, that they know that they have what they need to be able to do anything they want to do, which is awesome. I love that. We already know we're capable. We know we can do anything we put our mind to. But then when we start to ask how, we get stuck. And so a lot of nurses I'm talking to already have the idea. They already actually know what they want to do. They have a business idea. They have something that interests them. I'm interested in holistic coaching. I'm interested in foot care. I'm interested in consulting. I'm interested in IV wellness. They have a topic that they're interested in. But as soon as they start asking the how am I going to sell that? Or what would I actually be selling? They start to get confused and get stuck because they've never really been shown how to turn what they already know into a service people would pay for. And so they default to this very logical, like, I sell foot care, right? And that's not exciting. No one wants to be like, yes, I want to pay to have my feet taken care of, right? So we have to align what we're actually offering with what people really want to pay for. So it's really about getting down to what people want. So this is for nurses who know they want to start something, already in business and not seeing traction, or have a lot of skills but no clear offer. So if any of those are for you, any of those are you, this is for you today. So I'm excited to be talking about this because it's really boils down to like less work than we're trying to do right now, right? So you don't need to invent something brand new. You don't need to become this whole business person, get an MBA, take a certificate, add extra credentials because you don't know enough. You just need to package what you're already going to do, what you already know, your expertise, and position it in a way like we talked about last week. We talked about positioning for clients, positioning your audience, positioning your messaging. So now we're going to talk about what your service is, your service-based business, how you serve, and what people want to pay for. So people don't want to pay for, 25 years of med surg, right? Because really any nurse could do that. Any nurse could have 25 years of med surg under her belt. They don't want to pay for what's on your resume. Everybody has a resume with jobs on it. They don't want to pay for the fact that you worked at the hospital. They don't want to pay for random certificates. If there's no clear outcome tied to a wound care certificate, they don't care if you're certified or not, believe it or not. I have several certifications. I did them because I like them, but my clients don't pay me because I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse. They don't. They know that that doesn't connect to the service that I provide as a hospice compliance consultant. They don't care if I'm certified in that. They pay for outcomes. They pay for less stress, saved time. They pay for your guidance and strategy, for your actual experience, what you've already helped people with in the past. They pay for fewer mistakes or errors. They pay for making progress. They pay for improved confidence. They pay for better health, clarity and understanding, having a better system or process in place. So, an agency who's using me isn't just paying for chart audits. They're paying for reduced risk, cleaner documentation, better survey outcomes. So someone who is paying for holistic coaching isn't paying for 1 hour a month, right? Who wants to pay any amount of money for 1 hour a month? Because then we start gauging, is this hour worth it? Well, if an hour with her is $50 and an hour with her is $500, which one do you think is a better deal if we only attach that monetary amount to it, right? So you want to talk to them about progress, about what they'll get, about what they can expect to see from this, about how they'll feel, about how this will change their lives. Because people don't just buy consulting services, they don't buy 1 month of XYZ service, they buy a solution to a problem. So we're asking what outcome you create with your service, and we're looking at problems you already solve. Like we've talked a little bit about this, but what are people already asking for? So you're looking at a problem that you've solved in the past, you have experience with. So those are things that you want to position when you're talking about your services. You want to talk about your service as a solution to a problem. Let's talk about how this service can change their life, how this service is going to feel. Is it going to help them? They understand being helped, solved, a problem solved, feeling supported, being able to do something they haven't been able to do, being guided along a path they haven't gone down themselves because they didn't have you to guide them down it, fixing something that feels broken. So these are things that, we as nurses can help get a positive impact in people's lives. And so this works because we often think of like products. We think of what I'm selling, like this little box or this little widget, but really that's not what we're doing. We're helping people. And when you're leaning into a service-based business, you really have to think about how you serve people and what impact it has, because this is already something that as a nurse, you're probably passionate about, is making an impact and helping people. So your service is leveraging how you do that. And you can use that service to solve that expensive problem. We've talked about some expensive problems, but I'm going to review it again in case you haven't seen the last 2 weeks. Some valuable services that can solve expensive problems. Some examples of expensive problems in healthcare might be turnover. It could be confusion, whether that's with an organization or an individual. They are confused. They don't know what the right path to take is. They need you to guide them. Something inefficient, like a process, non-compliance, right? Whether that be with an individual or an organization. Could be poor onboarding, could be burnout, could be weight gain, hormonal issues, a lack of clarity. All of these things are problems that end up costing. They cost time, they cost money, they cost labor, they cost personal health. These are things that cost people something and that are painful. So back to that pain and the promise. Your service is going to help alleviate the pain. Your service is the promise that you're making to people. And so we want to position it as that instead of messaging it as 2 hours a month, right? Because that doesn't tell people what they're going to get. If all they get is 2 hours a month, anyone can give them that. They don't need you. So we want to position and message our services really clearly and really carefully, because services can create freedom for people. This can be something that they really need, that you are helping them to deliver. So when you're talking about your services, make sure that you inflect the passion that you have. You should be sharing your services with anyone who is talking about a problem. You can position your service as the solution, and you should be sharing it regularly. So you want to be sharing how you can serve. When you're talking about what your business does, you don't want to be saying, well, I offer 2 hours a month. That's not your offer, right? So we want to talk about how your services offer to help people. And so I think that we can get a little bit lost in this when we talk about building our offer out. We start saying like, okay, you'll get this, you'll get that, and we lose what the outcome actually is for them. So we don't want to tell people when people ask us, oh, well, how can you help me? We don't want to tell them what they'll get, right? We don't want to tell them that they're going to get this, that, and the other, unless they ask, like, what, okay, I understand. What am I going to get for that? Well, let's talk about what you're experiencing right now. You want to go back to that pain and say, if you're experiencing this right now, you're experiencing weight gain, you're experiencing, these weight related symptoms, you're going to get, as if you follow this plan, you're going to get relief from that. You're going to get that reduced symptoms. You're going to get that feeling better. So, this is what they actually want, right? They actually want to pay for that freedom, that the support that you're going to give them to get there, having that accountability, having that relief of symptoms, that relief of pain. And so, there's a big difference between um, those things that we're telling people they'll get and what the outcome is. So we want to make it really clear and really specific and really easy to say yes to. So if you're just listing that they're going to get 2 hours a month, they're going to get a piece of paper that lists everything they should do. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, is that we hand people, we expect that there's more value in our resources than in our actual guidance. And so we say, well, you're going to get this 10-page workbook. Well, if an article could solve a problem, no one would have a problem, because in the age that we're in, anybody can find an article on any topic. So we don't want to put too much. We want to capture the value, but the value is in you and what you bring to the table. So making sure that when you're sharing what they get, we're not overvaluing what they get. We're valuing the experience and how you are going to lead them through that experience. So making it clear, specific, and easy to say yes to. And I think that this is where some nurses can get stuck, because they get stuck in that explaining, how you're going to deliver X, Y, and Z. I'm going to, make sure you have supplements. I'm going to make sure, you have this. I have 20 years of experience in doing this. And that's where you lose people, because those aren't the things that people care about. So when you're looking at your service and how you're going to help people get from point A to point B, make sure that you're thinking about what your people actually want, using the words that they would actually say. This is another area that I definitely see that nurses have a really hard time with, is that when we think about what our ideal client wants, we miss how they would actually say what they want, and we are thinking about what we are selling instead of what they're really saying. So it's always one of the number one things I recommend, is just to go out and have conversations with your ideal clients. As many conversations as you can have. This is one of the best ways to really get an idea of what your client wants. If you feel like, I don't know how to do this, if you're feeling like, I'm not really sure how to make my service clear, specific, and easy to say yes to, then I definitely would encourage you to just start having conversations about your service, not to sell it, but just if you were interested in this topic, or find people who are your ideal client and start just asking them questions, interviewing them. What are you looking for when you're looking for this? Is this something that you've ever struggled with? What do you feel like is the hardest thing about this? What's the barrier? You may accidentally get a client, but that's not the point of these conversations. But you'll notice that in having these conversations, you're going to feel more comfortable with talking about your services. You're going to feel more clear on, how to message it and how to have that conversation, because sometimes we think about selling as selling to a large audience, but a lot of the times it's just in personal conversations, one on one. And so that's when we want to have those conversations is one on one. And so we want to make sure that um, we're really listening to what they have to say. We're really listening to what they say their barriers are. And you can use those words in your messaging. If you are really listening to the answers, you can help develop your messaging around that as well, because um, sometimes we are not using our clients' words around our services. And so our clients don't understand who we're talking to. We talked about having this big, broad audience and really needing to talk to a more specific person. This is part of that. So we need to be talking to one person. We need to use their words so that it's so specific that they have no doubt. And the other thing is vague or generalized services, they just kind of get ignored. They're not interesting or compelling. Like I only ever say I do consulting when someone asks, um, you know, like someone says like, "Oh, what is your business?" I'm a consultant. But if I was talking to someone who I was having a discovery call with and they said, "Okay, what do you guys do?" I wouldn't say, "We do consulting," right? Because that's very vague. We help hospices with education and compliance so they can have great surveys and not get fined and not get audited, right? We want to be super specific. So we don't want to say, I offer coaching. That's not what you offer. I offer, freedom from XYZ. I offer, um, you know, improved outcomes in what area. So I help this person achieve this outcome. So these are like I help statements that you could plug in easily, plug in who your ideal client is or who you're talking to, and then something desirable they can achieve and something not desirable they could avoid. And you want to get that specific. You want to get so specific that they know exactly who you're talking to and what you're saying. You want to make sure that you have very clearly defined who this is for in your messaging. So it shouldn't be, like we said, it shouldn't be a gigantic audience of anyone. If your answer is anyone, you need to revisit that and really get a little more specific. So healthcare professionals, even better would be new nurse managers. Women, okay, even better would be women navigating menopause, or fatigue related to menopause or weight gain related to menopause. You want to be super, super specific. I help business owners. No, I help nurses building consulting businesses, right? So when people feel seen, they pay attention, right? So they know, oh, that's me they're talking to. You also want your problem that we talked about to be super specific. So, we talked about some of the problems that people have. People pay attention to specifics. So, if you're talking about increased stress or unmanageable stress, disorganization, poor clinical documentation, low confidence or insecurity, burnout. What did we talk about? We talked about burnout, confusion, lost time or inefficiency, a lack of clients or income or revenue. A lot of monetary problems are really troubling and get attention as well. So if your service has something to do with saving money, recovering lost money, getting out of debt, you want to make sure you use that language to support your services specificity. So we don't want to say I provide support with, we want to say I help them do this thing that they want. So I help new nurse leaders create structure and gain confidence, right? I offer coaching. Well, no, I help women with menopause, um, you know, reduce their symptoms so that they can enjoy their life again, or so they can be with their family again, or so they can improve their relationships, right? We're talking about that negative thing they don't want and that positive thing that they do want. So specific problems create interest and attention. It should be easy to say, should be easy to repeat. So if it takes a long time for you to explain it, I would really use that I help statement and break that down. So I help who, solve what, and then you can talk about how, but I would even recommend not even talking about how and just saying why do you help them do that, so they can, right? So I help who solve what so they can, and then you can put your positive or negative there. So you want to get really really specific. You want to have a quick way to say. That's why they call it an elevator pitch, because you should be able to ride in an elevator and share what this is on the way down and have someone in the elevator understand what you do. If you can say it simply and confidently, others can repeat it, they can share and refer. Um, you want to make it feel easy to say and easy to say yes to. People hesitate when things feel confusing, it starts to feel overwhelming or not even doable. So help them see what your proven process is. This is a really simple way to help you get clients to say yes to you, is talk about your proven process. So there's 3 steps that I'm going to take you through. It's what happens first, it's what happens next, and then the outcome you get, right? Here's what that looks like. It's going to look like a free consult, an assessment, and monthly support that gets you to, your 6-month outcome here, or however your package is set up. So you want to keep it super simple. So, first we'll do our assessment. The next thing we're going to do is make a plan. And then the next thing we're going to do is get you your supplement package. And then or meet with our monthly support, or whatever your proven process is, however you're going to walk your clients through the process of working with you. We want to keep it very simple and clear and short. You don't want to have a simple 15-step process, right? Because if you can't explain it simply, then it's probably not going to sound doable to them. So simple next steps are going to help you create momentum. And then bring it all together. So if people aren't moving forward, especially, this is a couple things really quick that I see. I see nurses posting links in places with no background around it. And then they say, well, no one is clicking on my link. And it's like, well, how are you sharing that with them? And usually it's unsolicited. I am either unsolicited messaging to someone who I don't know, or I'm blasting it in a Facebook group, or just sharing the link itself on a page. This is not something that gets a good response. It's just not. Unsolicited messages or links with no type of context around them, or no interaction, just don't get conversion rates. So that's why it's not working. It's not going to work, generally speaking. So you need to be having those conversations. That's why it's not working. It's lacking the personal interaction. You need to be having conversations with people. Now you can post something that opens up a conversation, post a question, and when people answer, then start up a conversation. But it's not going to be quick, blast a link, here you go, and then they convert. Generally, it doesn't work that way. So if people are not moving forward, ask, is my service too broad, or my audience too broad or unclear who I'm talking to? Am I talking to too many people at once? Maybe I need to niche that down. Is my problem that I'm talking about that they have vague, or am I not using their language to talk about their problems? Am I using my language to talk about their problems? Are the next steps unclear that they should be taking? Do they not understand what should be happening now? They should know right away that the next step, if you're interested, is to book a call with me, or to go here and download your free 10 steps to freedom, or whatever it is. They should know the next step right away. Sign up on my email list, book a call, download this resource, whatever that looks like. So it's usually going to be one of those. If they don't know, it's probably your service is unclear or broad, your audience is unclear or broad, your problem is vague, or not in their words, not in their language, um, or the next step is unclear. Maybe the explanation on your web page is too long. I see this a lot. There's a bunch of text. There's paragraph on paragraph on paragraph. That's something that I see a lot, and people aren't going to read that. So it could be that the explanation of the services is too long and doesn't talk about the outcome. The great news about that is that all of that is fixable, right? Super easy to fix. These are things that as we go and as we grow through our businesses, we can tweak and change and adjust. And this is part of refining and growing our business. So, the other thing is, we're going to Nashville in 2 weeks. And this is the exact kind of thing we're going to be doing there. So we're going to be taking what ideas you have that maybe aren't working the way you hoped they would and refining them into something clear, simple, specific, and marketable that really makes people want to pay for it. So we're not going to be talking about more ideas, getting a new idea for what you thought you wanted to do. You can totally revamp your whole business and start from scratch if you want to, but I don't recommend that. I recommend sometimes we need a small pivot. We need to pivot away from language we're using. We need to pivot away from a package we're selling that just talks about what they get. We need to pivot away from a web page we're using. I know a lot of nurses get really discouraged because they're not getting clients, they're not getting the traction or the revenue that they hoped they would get. And so they give up and start something different. But really, it was just the checkout page wasn't clear. The button didn't work. The pricing was off. There was some small shift that could have been made for this to really work. Or they just sent it to people who didn't ask for it and weren't interested in it, right? These are super simple, easy to fix things that you can make very, very small tweaks to get a great response. So if you are interested in the workshop, there is the link. It is in Nashville in 2 weeks. I am super, super excited about it. Cannot wait. Would love to see you there. So this is your challenge for this live. Drop in the comments if you are a nurse with a business. What do you do in one sentence? So share your I help with me. I help who, do what, so that they can XYZ, right? So share in your comments below. And if it feels really hard for you or you're feeling like you're not quite there, I better see you in Nashville. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.